You turn the key, the screen glows, and instead of firing up and rolling out to the field, that big green machine flashes a code and tells you it will not move another inch until a dealer technician drives out and plugs in. It is the middle of harvest. Your grain is standing, the forecast says rain, and a tractor you paid nearly $250,000 for has just become the most expensive paperweight on your property. I know exactly how that screen works. Because for 9 years I stood on the other side of the counter, I wore the colors, I shook your hand across a showroom desk, I told you it was the best iron built on this earth, and I believed it. Right up until the morning I finally understood the truth I am about to hand you. The lock was the product all along, and the tractor was only the bait. What I am going to tell you tonight ends with a court case filed on January 15th, 2025, and a state law that took effect on January 1st, 2024. Together they prove that the thing you always suspected in your gut was not paranoia. It was the business model. And if you already own one of these lock machines and you have been sitting there thinking this video only helps the man shopping for his next tractor, I need you to stay with me, because the most important thing I say is built for you specifically. I still remember the fall of 2019, standing in the service bay in the gray light before the crew showed up, watching a farmer named Dale unload a 900 series off his trailer for the third time in one season. He had done nothing wrong. His machine had done nothing wrong. A sensor the size of my thumb had thrown a fault, and the software would not let him clear it himself. He looked at me like I could fix it. I couldn't. And that was the day the whole thing started to rot in my hands. So let me start where I started. Let me tell you how they earned your trust, because you cannot understand the betrayal until you understand how good the promise felt. When I began selling, the pitch was simple and it was honest sounding. Buy the green machine and you buy peace of mind. The resale holds, the dealer network is everywhere, the parts never run out. Your grandfather ran one, your father ran one, and the badge on the hood meant something. I said those words 1,000 times, and every time I said them, I meant them. Farmers are not fools. They did not buy on color. They bought on the belief that this company respected the man who owned the machine. That belief was real. It was earned over 100 years, and it was the single most valuable thing the company owned. More valuable than any factory. But here is the first layer I need to peel back for you. Somewhere in the last 15 years, the people running the numbers upstairs figured out something dangerous. They figured out that trust, once earned, can be spent. That a farmer who loves your brand will forgive almost anything and keep coming back and keep paying long past the point where a stranger would walk away. And they built a machine to spin that trust down to the penny. Not the tractor, the system around the tractor. Therefore, you need to understand how that system actually reaches into your machine, because it is not a metaphor. It is a piece of software with a name. The tool is called Service Advisor. It is the diagnostic software the dealer technician carries on a laptop, and it is the master key to the entire modern machine. Now, every complex tractor throws error codes. That is normal. Your old iron had idiot lights too. The difference, the thing they never printed in any brochure I handed out, is this. On these newer machines, a huge share of repairs cannot be completed without that Service Advisor tool pairing new parts to the machine's central computer. You can bolt in a brand new, genuine factory sensor with your own two hands. The machine will still refuse to run until someone with the software authorizes the marriage between the part and the controller. I watched this happen over and over. A man would replace a part correctly, perfectly, and then have to wait days and pay hundreds of dollars for a technician to drive out and type a code that took 90 seconds. The part was not the product. The permission was the product. And permission was something only we could sell. For a long time, the company would not even admit the tool existed for ordinary owners. It was dealer only. And when farmers finally forced the issue, a stripped-down version got offered, but the deep functions, the ones that actually let you complete the repair, stayed locked behind the dealer door. I sat in the meetings where we talked about it as protecting the customer. Protecting the customer from what? From himself. From fixing his own machine on his own land. So that is the first betrayal, and by itself, it is enough to make your blood run hot. But it is nothing compared to what it cost you. And the cost is where the scheme stops being an inconvenience and starts being a wound. Let me give you real money. because this audience does not run on feelings, it runs on numbers. A public interest research group that studies this exact issue estimated that right to repair restrictions cost American farmers around $3.2 billion a year in unnecessary expense and lost productivity. Chew on that number, billion with a B, every single year, drained out of the countryside and into a system designed to keep you dependent. Now bring it down to your kitchen table. When a machine goes down and you must wait for a dealer, the average wait during peak season stretches for days, and every one of those days during harvest can cost a working operation thousands of dollars in spoiled timing, in a weather window that slams shut, in a crop that shatters on the ground. I have seen a service call where the labor and travel and the software authorization for what should have been a $40 afternoon fix landed on an invoice north of $700, and the farmer paid it. Not because he could not turn a wrench. He could rebuild a transmission blindfolded. He paid it because the software would not let him finish what he started. I want you to sit with the cruelty of that. A man who has fixed everything he has ever owned, standing next to a running engine, holding the correct part, forbidden by a line of code from making it work, that is not maintenance. That is a toll booth built inside your own property. And I helped install it. And here is the part that used to keep me up at night. The dependency was not an accident of complicated technology. Complicated is not the same as locked. A jetliner is complicated, and mechanics all over the world are trusted to repair it. The lock was a choice. Somebody chose it, somebody profited from it, and for 9 years that somebody was signing my paycheck. But if it were only about repair bills, you could grit your teeth and eat the cost. It is worse than that. Therefore, we have to talk about who blessed this arrangement and how they made it look like peace. In January of 2023, there was a big announcement. A memorandum of understanding was signed between the equipment giant and the American Farm Bureau Federation. The press releases made it sound like the war was over. Farmers would finally get access to tools, manuals, and diagnostics. Handshakes all around. I remember the mood at the dealership. Relief. See, they said the system works. No need for those pushy new laws. Read the fine print, though, because I did. That memorandum was not a law. It was a voluntary agreement, and it contained a quiet little poison pill. In exchange for these promises, the Farm Bureau agreed to encourage its state chapters to refrain from supporting or introducing new right to repair legislation. Think about what that means. The most powerful farm lobby in the country agreed to stand down on the very laws that would have made these promises legally binding. You were handed a promise with one hand while the tool that could enforce it was quietly taken off the table with the other. That is the moment the villains stopped being a faceless policy and became a strategy. They did not just build the lock, they funded and courted the people who were supposed to protect you, and they turned a farmer advocacy group into a reason to do nothing. The betrayal was not only in the machine, it was in the room where the deal got signed, and the regulators noticed. In its long study of repair restrictions, the Federal Trade Commission concluded that manufacturers simply had not shown good justification for most of the barriers they threw up against independent and owner repair. The government looked at the same wall I stood behind every day and said, out loud, in a public report, that there was scarce evidence it was there to protect anybody but the manufacturer. Before I hand you the rest of this confession, I need to give you the map that turns everything I just described into a way out. Picture yourself standing next to that dead green machine, the correct part already bolted in, forbidden by a line of code from making it run, and now picture never being stuck there again. That is exactly what I built the complete iron furrow system to do. It is an instant download you can read tonight, and it lays the ownership myth bare, showing you what your dealer agreement actually lets them control. It gives you 5 real cash recovery moves, ranked by return and by how much honest sweat each one takes, and a 12-month field map that walks you from that invoice shock all the way to running independent of the dealer. Here is a free test you can run before you spend a dime on anything. Tonight, look up the United States Copyright Office repair exemption for agricultural equipment, first granted in 2021 and renewed in 2024, and read it with your own eyes. It says plainly you already have the legal right to get past that lock, exactly like the book claims. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen, or go to the link in the description or the pinned comment. And this is not seasonal hype. The money is bleeding out of your operation every day that machine sits waiting on a technician. So the sooner you have the plan, the sooner it stops. Now, back to the part they truly never wanted you to connect. Now, if you are the kind of owner who feels the walls closing in, this next part is the reason I made this whole video. So lean in, because I am talking straight to you now. Maybe you already own one of these machines. Maybe you signed the papers years ago, you love the way it runs, and the thought of everything I just described makes you feel trapped, like you bought a beautiful cage. I am not here to tell you to junk it. That would be insulting, and it would be wrong. I am here to tell you there are things you can do this week to claw back control, and they are legal, and almost nobody at the dealership will ever mention them to you. First thing, there is a federal exemption you have never been told about. Under the law that normally makes it illegal to bypass software locks, the United States Copyright Office reviews special exemptions every 3 years. And they granted one, first in 2021 and renewed again in 2024, that specifically allows the owner of agricultural equipment to circumvent those software locks for the purpose of diagnosis, maintenance, and repair of the machine you own. Let me say that plainly. The federal government has already carved out your legal right to get past the digital lock to fix your own tractor. That protection exists right now tonight, whether or not your dealer ever admits it. Second thing, you are not the only one who figured this out, and a whole underground of solutions has grown up around exactly your problem. Farmers have been sourcing diagnostic software and reflashing tools, some of it famously traded through independent channels, so that a man in his own shop can read codes, clear faults, and complete repairs without begging for a technician. There are independent repair shops, small ones, run by former dealer mechanics who got sick of the same thing I got sick of, and they will work on your machine without the corporate leash. Find the one nearest you before you need him, not during the breakdown. Third thing, and this is the one that costs you nothing. Document everything, every wait time, every travel charge, every software authorization fee, every day of downtime. Write it down with dates and dollars, because the legal ground is shifting fast right now, and owners who kept records are the ones who will be made whole. Your invoices are not just bills, they are evidence. I am telling you this because for 9 years, I was the man who could have told 100 farmers and never did. Consider this me paying it back, because here is what all of that documentation is building toward, and this is where the whole story finally breaks open. For a long time, the company treated all of this as settled and safe. It was not. In 2022, antitrust lawsuits from farmers started landing, and they got consolidated into a single major case in the United States District Court for the Northern District of Illinois. The heart of the claim was brutal and simple: that the company had unlawfully tied repair to its own dealer network, monopolizing the service of its own machines and forcing owners to pay inflated prices. And in the fall of 2023, the judge refused to throw the case out. He let it move forward. That refusal was the first crack in a wall I had been told was unbreakable. Then came the hammer. On January 15, 2025, the Federal Trade Commission itself, joined by the Attorneys General of Illinois and Minnesota, sued the company in federal court. The government accused it, in a formal complaint, of driving up costs for farmers by unlawfully restricting access to the very repair tools and software I have been describing to you, and of funneling repairs into its own dealer network to the tune of enormous profit. This is not a forum post. This is not a rumor at the coffee shop. This is the United States government, in a signed filing, saying the thing you felt in your bones was true. So now you understand the trap, who built it, who profited, and who finally broke ranks. But understanding a trap is not the same as walking out of it. And this is the part they truly never wanted you to connect, the secret I saved for last, the one that changes everything. While all of this was burning, a quieter door was opening, and I found it buried in the most boring place imaginable, in the fine print of a state statute and a signed manufacturer agreement. On April 25th, 2023, the state of Colorado signed into law the first Agricultural Right to Repair Act in the entire country. It took effect on January 1st, 2024, and unlike that toothless memorandum, this one has teeth. It legally requires equipment manufacturers to provide farmers and independent shops with the parts, the tools, the diagnostic software, and the documentation needed to fix their machines on fair terms. Not a promise, a law with penalties. Colorado was first, and it kicked the door down. Other states are now moving through it. But here is the secret finale, the piece that ties the escape in the title to the way out in your own barn. Not every manufacturer fought this the same way. While the biggest green giant was busy getting sued by the federal government, another company chose the opposite road. AGO, the parent company that builds Fendt, sat down with the American Farm Bureau and signed its own repair commitment, moving to hand owners and independent shops the tools and data to fix their machines. The company behind the tractor in this title chose, on the record, to loosen the leash instead of tightening it. And that is why American farmers are quietly walking away from the badge their grandfathers ran and climbing into a green and red machine from Bavaria. It is not just the engineering, though the engineering is a revelation. Fendt has been building its continuously variable Vario transmission since the mid-1990s. Decades of refinement, and its big machines are known to run tens of thousands of hours and hold resale value that shocks people who only ever knew one brand. The 900 and 1000 series are built like they are meant to outlive the man who buys them, which is exactly the promise the other company made and then quietly broke. But the real reason, the one that lives underneath the horsepower charts, is the one I confess to you tonight. Farmers are not just buying a different transmission, they are buying back their independence. They are choosing the company that treats the software as a tool they own instead of a leash they rent. And the beautiful, buried truth is that you did not have to wait for anyone to save you. The exemption was already granted. The lawsuit was already filed. The law already passed in Colorado on January 1st, 2024. The escape route was sitting there in the public record the whole time, kept alive by a handful of stubborn farmers and lawyers and one state legislature that refused to look away. Now it is in your hands. So this week, do 3 things. Look up whether a right to repair bill is moving in your own state and call the office that is carrying it, because those calls are the only reason Colorado happened. Find the independent mechanic nearest you and shake his hand before you need him. And the next time a salesman in bright colors tells you the lock is there to protect you, remember that a man who once wore those colors drove out to a service bay in the fall of 2019, watched a farmer named Dale get told he could not fix his own machine, and walked away for good. You did not spend $250,000 to rent your own tractor. You bought it. It is yours. The steel, the software, the right to open the hood at midnight and make it run again without asking permission from anyone, that is what ownership always meant on the land. And no line of code and no memorandum signed in a boardroom gets to take it from you. You are the kind of owner who refuses to rent what he already paid for. That is the whole reason you made it this far into a confession most people would rather not hear. So, let me ask you something, and I want you to actually answer it down in the comments, because this is the only place I get to hear from the people I once sold to. What is the single worst repair invoice you have ever been handed? The one where you knew you could have done the job yourself, and what machine was it on? Name the model. Name the number on the bill. Tell me where you are watching from tonight. I read them, and other owners read them, and every honest number you post is one more piece of evidence that this was never in your head. If what I told you tonight lit something up, then join the people who are taking their iron back, one machine and one honest wrench at a time, because the next thing I am going to pull apart is the resale numbers, the actual side-by-side figures on what a locked green machine is worth at auction against a Fendt with the same hours, and I promise you the gap is bigger and uglier than anyone at the dealership will ever say out loud. Here's where this video ends, but stay with me inside the right to repair, and I'll walk you through the full farm-by-farm switch to Fendt, model by model, picking up right where we stopped. Inside, you can ask me your own question. A real person, me, answers you myself. You won't be alone. Farmers like you are already in there. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen. Cancel anytime. One click. Now, if the tractors surprised you, wait until you hear what's happening with the balers. There's a real reason farmers are turning them down, and it might change how you see your own equipment. That next video starts right here.